I've always been a creative person with ideas I was excited about, but if I'm being honest, I was constantly starting and stopping. I'd feel inspired, make a plan, and then somehow get in my own way. So today I want to talk about the 7 subtle ways I was self-sabotaging and the actions I am taking to start becoming. So I would say maybe around the age of 31, I realized I wanted to begin content creation. And for a little bit there, I did. I was creating podcasts, sharing stories, and interviewing some pretty notable guests. But then all of a sudden, I stopped. Friends would approach me and ask, "Hey, what happened with that podcast of yours? Or I haven't seen you online. Are you still doing that thing? I mean, what was it called again?" I mean, every time I would have an excuse. I'd be like, "Oh, I've been busy," or you know how it is, like work, life, your fiance at the time, your career, everything's getting in the way. I really don't have time. But every time I made an excuse, it felt like a lie. Right? It felt like a lie. At the time, I don't know why it felt like a lie, but after reading The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest, I realized the reason it felt like a lie was because I was providing circumstantial situations the opportunity to provide the script for my life. According to Brianna, there are 2 types of problems: circumstantial and chronic. Circumstantial problems are conditions of your life and are not from who you are as a person. They're situational, recurring, and often invisible, but they still shape how you feel and respond. These types of problems were issues that could inhibit me from progressing towards my goals. But given the opportunity, I could get a better job, I can alter the relationships around me, and I can learn some coping mechanisms for the major transitions I was going through in life. So if I alter my circumstances, I could alter outcomes. Whereas the chronic problems are the deeper issues, the stuff we avoid. Unresolved trauma, emotional regulation struggles, and the coping mechanisms we built to survive. But these aren't surface level obstacles. They are patterns developed over time to keep us safe, to keep us comfortable, and unintentionally to keep us from growing. And this is where the mountain begins to take shape. The mountain is not the job, the relationship, the circumstances, or even the season of life we find ourselves in. The mountain is the internal terrain shaped by those chronic problems. It is made up of the very strategies that once protected us but now prevent us from expansion. When she writes in the opening lines, "There is nothing holding you back in life more than yourself," it is not an accusation, it is an invitation. An invitation to look inward. But before I could accept that idea, I really had to understand the metaphor of the mountain. I had to see that the mountain was not something placed in my path. It was something formed within me. It was built from old wounds, unprocessed emotions, and survival patterns that had outlived their purpose. To understand the mountain, then, is to recognize that the climb is inward. So it's really like a belaying situation. I would, and I was honestly really surprised to discover how many ways I had been self-sabotaging. And you know what? If I'm really being honest with myself, I know these are only the tip of the iceberg. But as I walk through them, I want to share what I was allowing to hold me back and how I have begun developing healthier mechanisms to move forward. But before I do that, I do want to say this. If you recognize yourself in any of these patterns, you are not broken. You are not lazy. You are not behind. What we often label as quote unquote self-sabotage is in many ways self-protection. We keep ourselves stuck from our instinctual desire to stay safe. More than anything, we don't want to harm ourselves. We don't want to harm ourselves emotionally, mentally, or even socially. So, over time, we have developed coping mechanisms designed to protect us. We cannot fault ourselves for that. At one point, those patterns kept us safe. Holding back felt safer than risking failure, rejection, or discomfort. But there comes a point when survival is no longer enough. We want to move from survival to thriving. And if the desire to move forward is there, if the goal still whispers to you, then we have to begin asking deeper questions. For me, I was asking myself, what am I trying to keep myself safe from? What internal obstacle was keeping me from where I am? Because the answers to those questions are where the real climb begins. So, as I walk through each of the ways I was self sabotaging, I want you to know this. This is not going to be easy. This isn't just about identifying the problem. Awareness alone isn't enough. Within each one, I am also going to be speaking toward 2 tools Brianna speaks about that have been essential in shifting my approach. Emotional regulation, which is the identification and understanding of my emotions, and journaling. Because recognizing the pattern is one thing, but learning how to respond to it differently is where the real work begins. So here we go. The very first way I was self-sabotaging, perfectionism. You know what? Perfectionism sounds noble, doesn't it? I mean, like high standards, excellence, attention to detail. But for me, it wasn't excellence. It was avoidance dressed up as discipline. I would start a project with so much excitement. I mean, I would be elated to begin, filled with all this promise and hope. And the second it didn't feel great enough or good enough, I'd toss it. I'd scrap it. If it wasn't deep enough, polished enough, impactful enough, it wasn't worth finishing. I told myself I just had high standards. But one day I had to pause and ask myself, who am I actually trying to impress? I mean, and what would happen if I wasn't perfect? When I really sat with it, I noticed something physical. I noticed tightness in my chest, irritation over small mistakes, and this urgency to start over. That wasn't passion. That was fear. I was fearful of what I was attempting to do. My body was trying to protect me from judgment, whether it was real or imagined, because it was all in my head. So instead of deleting the work, I started practicing something small. I would take one slow breath and I would tell myself, progress is safer than paralysis. Later, I would journal this. And if you find yourself having perfectionism tendencies, you can journal this as well. Where in my life am I choosing perfect over done? And what would good enough look like today? That question alone began to loosen the grip. It allowed me to realize that I didn't have to be perfect. I just had to try and do the best that I could based off of the level of capacity I had that day. Number 2, fear of failing. You know what? This one's straightforward. I mean, I was afraid to fail. Who isn't? Not just afraid of disappointing others, but afraid of disappointing myself. Afraid of trying and proving that maybe I wasn't as capable as I hoped. But here's the thing. Failure teaches more than success ever could. And as much as it hurts, and I know it's uncomfortable, and for me, it was expensive, sometimes humbling, but it does refine you. And yet I still avoided things. So I had to ask myself, if failure guaranteed growth, would I still avoid it? Whenever I was about to try something new, I noticed I would suddenly feel tired, distracted. I'd scroll, I'd reorganize something. That wasn't laziness. That was my nervous system saying, let's not risk embarrassment. When I caught that feeling, I started grounding myself. Feet flat on the floor, slow inhale, slow exhale. Reminding myself that discomfort is not danger. My discomfort was on the opposite side of fear. I was afraid of actually something outside of my norm. And I would journal this. What does success actually mean to me? Separate from what others expect it to mean. Once I redefined success, failure lost some of its power. Number 3, justification. When I was deep into self-sabotage, I became very busy. Laundry, dishes, meetings, helping everyone else, saying yes constantly. I convinced myself those things were more important than creating, more urgent even, more responsible. But if I'm being honest, it was easier to fold laundry than face the vulnerability of putting myself out there because I was keeping myself safe. I knew how to fold those clothes. I knew how to put them away. I knew how to organize and clean. The shinier, the better. But that wasn't expanding myself. It wasn't providing me with something more than what I had grown accustomed to. So I asked myself, am I busy or am I avoiding? And I realized something else. And this is kind of uncomfortable to even say. When I had empty space, I felt anxious, almost restless. Business was numbing me from having to confront fear. And that was information. Instead of filling every minute, I tried 5 minutes doing creation, just 5 minutes a day towards what I actually wanted. Whether it was posting, whether it was creating a reel, whether it was writing in a script or reading a book. Whatever it was something toward my goal. Every day, at least 5 minutes. And with such a small metric, it allowed it to be attainable for me. And you know what? That felt manageable. My body didn't panic. And you know what? I wrote this down. If I stopped filling my schedule to avoid discomfort, what would I finally make time for? And that question shifted everything. It really made me reflect on what I was making time for and what were some things that I needed to start saying no to. Because the more and more I said yes to things, the less and less I actually was accomplishing anything, whether it be towards my goals or towards tasks that I needed to complete in my home or for personal sakes. I was spreading myself so thin that I was honestly not accomplishing anything. And that made me feel more beat down than anything. So I really needed to stop and shift myself and realize how I needed to redirect myself. Number 4, being too busy. Some of us are taskmasters. I mean, I've prided myself in that, being able to tackle multiple tasks a day. It gives us something to do, right? We'll execute. I prided myself on being reliable, capable, helpful. But I had to ask, helpful to who? Before committing to one thing, I started asking myself, how is this helping me move toward my end goal? And here's what I noticed. When I would say no, I felt guilty. I would feel heavy, like I was letting someone down. My body equated usefulness with worth. That guilt didn't mean I was wrong. It meant I was doing something unfamiliar. I was feeling guilty for not helping others, but in all actuality, I should have been guilty for not helping myself. I was placing others' needs above mine. So when that wave hit, I didn't immediately backtrack. I breathed through it. And then I let it pass. And later I would journal. What would my schedule look like if it reflected my priorities instead of others' expectations? And that one really stung but it was necessary. Number 5, guilt of succeeding. This one surprised me. I wasn't just afraid of failing. I was afraid of succeeding. I thought things like, you know what, I'm already blessed. I already have a career. I already achieved certain goals in life. Who am I to want more? How dare I? But when I said that out loud, and even hearing myself right now saying it, I realized how small I was keeping myself. So I asked, who taught me that wanting more meant I was ungrateful? Or that I wasn't worthy of wanting more? When something went well, I noticed I would downplay it. I would change the subject, I would minimize it. You know what? That feeling, that was shame. A quiet belief that expanding somehow made me selfish. When that feeling came up, I practiced something simple: receiving. Telling myself, I am allowed to expand. And I journaled, if I fully allow myself to succeed, who would I become? That question felt scary, but freeing at the same time. Isn't that crazy how you can feel two things at the same time? Number 6, and this one really tripped me up. Upper limit. Did y'all know about this? Upper limit? When I first learned about the upper limit problem, it was with Brianna. I've never heard about it before. I was offended. I was shocked. I'm literally like, you mean to tell me that when things are going well, I sabotage it? Me? Me? But when I reflected, I saw it. A big win followed by irritability. Have you ever had that happen to you where you just had a great day and all of a sudden the slightest thing will set you off? Like snapping at someone I love, picking a fight over nothing. So I started asking myself, and this one is kind of tricky because you kind of have to really be aware of when you're in a heightened state that there could be a mood shift. So being very self-aware of yourself. What happened right before my mood shifted? Almost every time something good had just occurred. And when I felt that agitation rising, instead of reacting outwardly, I'd pause. 3 slow breaths. And then I reminded myself, I am not my feelings. I can feel this without acting from it. And later I wrote, when good things happen in my life, how do I typically respond? Do I celebrate? Or do I shrink? Or do I screech? How do I respond? Awareness didn't erase it overnight. I didn't all of a sudden get amnesia and become this enlightened being. No. But it gave me a responsibility to myself and to others. Number 7, worrying about irrational fears. This one is sneaky. This one is like, what if they judge me? What if this backfires? What if I ruin everything? Those intrusive questions that make you worry about everything. Sure, those things could happen. But the key word is could. Could does not mean will. I had to ask myself, what is the exact opposite of this fear? And is that what I actually want? When my thoughts spiraled, I noticed my body would feel restless, tight, alert, it was preparing for impact. Because I was spending all this time preparing, anxious, creating tension in my body for something that may never come. That wasn't intuition. That was anxiety trying to predict danger so I could feel in control. So I practiced anchoring myself in the present, naming what I see, what I hear, what I feel physically, bringing myself back to the now, really utilizing my senses to stay within the moment, right? I see a puppy right now. I feel her wiggly skin. Yeah. I smell the disinfectant from the cleaning that I just did. It's really bringing myself back to now. And I would journal. I Still journalist. If I released the need to control how others perceive me, what would I finally allow myself to do? Because worrying does not move us forward. It only keeps us frozen. And as I sit here and reflect, I feel like I've tried to be honest in all my podcasts, but as I really sit here and reflect, and I have to be honest with myself and with you as well, it's not easy. This is not easy. This new normal is very uncomfortable. And I find myself attempting to fall back into some of these. Because my body wants to feel safe when it's uncomfortable. That's its job. Instinctually, it's trying to protect me. It wants to resist. And if you are listening to this, chances are you are looking for change too. And your body, just know this, your body will resist. You will want to fall into old habits. You may not want to hear that, but that resistance isn't failure. It's change. For most of our lives, familiar felt safe, even when it felt unfulfilling. Awareness doesn't erase habits. It gives you responsibility. And that can be heavy. It can be. However, from today on, we can choose to make it empowering because our emotions are information. And if you're listening to this and noticing something coming up for you, I want to offer this as an invitation, not a rule. You don't have to fix anything right now. You don't have to understand it at all. Maybe start by doing what I'm still learning to do. Pause. Create a little safety first. That might look like taking a deep breath, putting your phone down, start in small increments, or giving yourself 5 quiet minutes without trying to be productive. If it feels supportive, try writing down what you're feeling. Not the why, not how to change it, just what's there. Begin identifying the emotion. No judgment, no correcting, just noticing. And if at any point it feels like too much, that's information too. Healing doesn't happen by pushing harder. It happens when we feel safe enough to stay present. So move at your own pace. Take what resonates. Leave the rest. We're learning this together. And what I'm learning is that healing isn't about fixing myself. It's about staying present. It's about staying present instead of running. It's about becoming someone who no longer abandons themselves, someone who's more self-aware, who asks about their feelings and validates those feelings, and who's willing to do the inner work required to move toward their goals. And that, to me, is the other side of the mountain. So, before we wrap up, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for staying. Thank you for listening all the way through, for putting up with Callie's antics. If you're watching this on YouTube, conversations like this take courage, and choosing to sit with yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, really matters. If something in this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to sit with it a little longer. Maybe journal about it if it feels safe. Maybe revisit a part that felt heavy. Healing doesn't always happen in the moment. Sometimes it happens after. And if you stayed until the end, please know how much I appreciate you. This kind of inner work is not easy. And you didn't do it alone today. I don't feel like I did alone. If you feel called, share this episode with someone you trust, or save it for yourself for a day when you need the reminder. And if you're not already, make sure you want to read it too? Do you want to read it? Yeah? Make sure you're subscribed or following the podcast so we can keep growing together. This is just the beginning. I'm really glad you're here. You hear that? I'm really glad you're here. Yeah, I'm glad you're here. Nos vemos, familia. Adios.